Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics need counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko and joined once again my good buddy Dr. Issues.
Wow, Anthony just gave me the cue. What on earth am I supposed to do now? So many people listening. Better make it important. Make it count. Hello, everybody.
Was that your internal monologue?
You got it.
Oh boy. Well, I don't think we needed to hear that. Maybe if you just had those little boxes, that would help.
Yeah, well, we dealt with that with Deadpool. It just makes you sound insane.
Fair enough. Can't really argue that. So this is issue 16 of Capes on the Couch, where comics need counseling. Before we get into the featured guest for today, I just want to remind everybody you can find this episode on our website, capesonthecouch.live. We are available and distributed through the Libsyn network. You can download this show on iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/capesonthecouch. We have a Twitter account, Capes on the Couch. Doc Issues and I also have our own individual Twitter accounts, Anthony Sitko and Doc Issues. And you can email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com with any of your questions. So we do ask that you like, subscribe, leave a 5-star positive review if you're listening on iTunes or any of the other digital platforms that allow you to rate and review the show, because that certainly helps us out. We've got a Patreon page, patreon.com/capesonthecouch, where you can subscribe at the $1, $3, $5, and $10 levels. $1 gets you our appreciation and a shout out and thank you. $3 gets you early access to the show. $5 gets you a longer uncensored version of the skit, and we guarantee that any questions you have will be answered. And $10 means once a month you get to pick a character for us to do an episode on, and we will definitely do answer any questions that you have about that particular character, just like we recently had with the Legion a couple weeks back. So that was picked by one of our Patreon subscribers, Brian. So once again, a shout out to our patrons. Thank you, Brian, Robbie, and my mom. And so now we are going to get into the meat of this episode. And this week we are looking at the Sentry. I know, Doc, you've been wanting to do Sentry for a while. You kept bringing him up a couple of times. You were mentioning either in the episode or during prep for these episodes that you really wanted to get into Bob Reynolds.
Yeah, I think it was for selfish reasons, but we'll get into that when we, get to the proper points during the episode.
So the Sentry, Bob Reynolds, was created by Paul Jenkins, Jay Lee, and Rick Veitch in Sentry #1 in September 2000, and he's a Marvel character. He's basically an ersatz of Superman, is essentially what it boils down to. He gets his powers from a serum that gives him the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. So he's nigh invulnerable. He can fly. He's got energy blasts. He's basically the flying brick, and once again, I love TV Tropes terms. I love that site. If you've ever been to TV Tropes, you can find out anything you want about anything you've ever watched or read, and they really just boil it down, and it makes you, I guess, consume media in a different way, because you start to see corollaries and things that you never noticed. But I digress. Anyway, that's where some of the terminology that I use comes from, is TV Tropes.
Oh, okay. So the Sentry is Superman? All right. You don't need me. I'm out of here. Oh, no, we're back. Okay. No, I get it. There's a lot more to it than that, right? Okay.
Yeah, a lot more to it than that. So Bob Reynolds is this overweight middle-aged man who remembers that he used to be the superhero known as the Sentry. And here's the thing that I really like about this series, particularly the beginning series where we're introduced to the Sentry. He was part of the Marvel Universe basically from the beginning. He was in all of these adventures and interact with all these heroes. And the way that they portray this is really cool, because the art style shifts to a very 60s style. Like, I don't want to say Kirby-esque, but just that coloring and the way the panels are laid out, and even the dialogue is of that era, and it evokes a certain nostalgia, and it makes you wonder, well, why don't we know anything about the Sentry if he's been friends with all of these people for decades.
To be honest with you, when it came out, it was one of those situations because they even have faux comic covers like of these previous adventures. And I'm not going to lie, because I was still a relatively young person. I remember thinking like, wait, are they saying this guy was created and now I actually thought, like, can I get these comics? Like, I'm being honest about that. That's how well they did it.
No, it was very, very well done. He was best friends with Reed Richards. I mean, Reed was the best man at his wedding. He helped get Peter Parker a Pulitzer Prize. So there are all these things that are happening that you're reading throughout the series, and you go, well, why don't we know who this guy is? How come he was interacting with these heroes for years and we never heard of him? Well, that is exactly how it plays into the story. So the Void is returning. We're never told in the beginning what the Void is. We just know the Void is returning and it's really, really bad. And the Sentry, Bob, is the only one who knows, but no one remembers him. So over the course of the series, what we find out is that Sentry and the Void were actually the same person within Bob Reynolds. And in order to prevent the Void from destroying the world, Bob had to stop being the Sentry, and they had to wipe the memory of the Sentry from everyone in the world, including Bob.
Yeah, I'm sure that was an easy thing to do. I'm sure there'd be no other repercussions with that, right? Right?
Nope.
Oh.
So he's able to defeat the Void once again, but in order for him to do that again, he has to make everyone forget the Sentry once more. And he's asking Reed, and Reed is basically pleading with him like, there has to be another way. And Bob is like, no, this is really just the only way that it can be done. He voluntarily submits himself to the Raft for safekeeping, the Raft being the maximum security prison. It's referenced in the MCU. I think it was in Civil War, where we see it introduced, and then it was referenced in Jessica Jones, because he claims that he killed his wife, and that's why he was just like, I need to be locked away. I need to be kept under lock and key. But there's a breakout that occurs. He helps fight some of the supervillains that are trying to break out alongside some of the new Avengers.
There are so many iconic artistic panels with the Sentry. I think this is the first one, though, that really comes to mind. He rips Carnage in half. I mean, just flat out rips him in half. I don't know how else to say it. Anybody that's familiar with Carnage knows that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. It's not easy to do. And I think that goes to demonstrate the abilities that the Sentry has, because he's so powerful. And again, he is supposed to be this Superman XP that you show just, wow, he can just do that. And it's not even a thing for him. And this is where it kind of gets really meta. So I hope you can follow along. Bob Reynolds and the Sentry implant memories of his life into the mind of Paul Jenkins, who you're saying, well, Paul Jenkins, didn't you just say that name is the writer? Yes, I did. So Paul Jenkins in the Marvel Universe is a comic book writer who creates a comic book character known as the Sentry. So we're very meta here. We're like fourth wall breaking, self-referential type stuff, because that's how repressed these memories are within the universe. So then all the heroes show up and they're talking to Bob and they're saying, you're Bob Reynolds, you're a real person, but the Sentry is a comic book character. See, we have comic books that show you had all these adventures alongside comic book characters and heroes and so on, but your wife is here. She's alive. You're Bob Reynolds, you're having a psychiatric breakdown, and we can get you some help. So as it turns out, the Void wasn't actually defeated. Well, he was, but he came back because this is comic books. So Bob once again begins to have a breakdown, and the Void is taking over. And the only way that the Void can be stopped is through Bob once again, because they are all one and the same. And so Emma Frost goes into his mind. And it's just cool artistic choices that they make again with the way it's done. Emma Frost goes into his head and she's able to help him overcome. It was a virus planted by Mastermind to help throw Bob off and to keep the Sentry at bay. So Emma Frost is able to help him overpower this virus and help him regain some of his powers.
Right. I think that was done incredibly well. I want to make a comment about Bob himself, because the way he's portrayed, it's a little different, because we've already talked about the similarities to Superman. With Superman, you have Clark Kent, who's incredibly productive. You know, if you knew Clark Kent, you would think, wow, this is a pretty cool guy. You know, he works at a newspaper. He still looks pretty fit and all that stuff. Bob's kind of like just your average Joe. You don't really know what he does. He's married, but it's kind of a really dull, uneventful life. And that's, I think, on purpose, because it's just this whole ignore me, I'm not that important. And then, after he's forgotten everything and people are trying to remind him, or he starts to remember on his own, it becomes like, wow, how on earth am I this massive figure and this horrible being when I'm just this nobody?
Yeah, he's a pudgy schlub, and yet he is both one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe and one of its greatest nemeses, all in one. So this is a very interesting combination of ideas and things that we see within the Sentry and the character of Bob Reynolds. So Emma Frost basically gives him a clean slate. And that's one of the things that she talks about. She says, you're able to have this new life. You're a hero. So nobody remembers what you did before. Nobody remembers the void, but you can now be the hero that you were always meant to be. And you get to tell everyone, I'm the Sentry. And yes, you don't have all of your heroics, but you can learn from those experiences. So then he gets a new solo series. And here's where things again get very offbeat. And as things tend to be with this character, there's a lot that happens. And I know a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Cyclops, we're like, we know this doesn't make sense and we just don't think about it too hard. This isn't that. It's not a situation where we're saying don't think about it too hard. We're saying just try and follow along. We'll do the best that we can. But because again, so much of the Sentry is referential and self-referential within the multiple identities and personalities that he has. This isn't Moon Knight. We've done previous characters with multiple identities before. We did Moon Knight. We did Legion. This is not that. This is a situation. It's a little different because they're all there and they're within Bob, but they're not, depending on the story. I just want to preface what we're about to get into so that you try and follow along as best you can.
Okay, so this is one that when I said selfish reasons why I wanted to do Sentry, it's because I remember reading this one particular story arc, and it involved a psychiatrist. It involved a therapist, Dr. Cornelius Worth. So your first thought might be, all right, he gets an opportunity to really work with him. And Sentry wanted that work, or rather Bob wanted that work. Sentry has his own fortress, if you want to once again make the corollary, the Fortress of Solitude with Superman. But he points out, hey, I have the void locked away now. And so I don't need to worry about that. And Dr. Worth thinks, excellent. Okay, I'm glad you're able to do that. Except when it's shown to him, it's just a mirror and a chair. In which case, and I'm sure you can all follow along with this, like, oh dear, that means that this person now is working within his own mind again. And I don't know what to do with the Void or Sentry or Bob or whoever I'm talking to at the given time. Well, it turns out that this was all an elaborate ploy by the Void, of all people, who also shows that he's in control of Bob and says, well, guess what? This is the closest persona in terms of what Robert Reynolds is. The Void really is it. And that's a disturbing thought because you're basically saying that the baseline for this character is incredible evil. And at one point, I remember this just off the top of my head, and I'm sure people will correct me on the details. But the point is, he puts Dr. Worth in great peril, including a situation where he's going to be shot, and says, well, once again, to go back to the Superman tropes, if the Sentry is faster than a speeding bullet, then you'll be able to stop Dr. Worth getting shot. And it's a blank panel. And then from there, the next panel is Sentry actually stopping the bullet. So somehow Sentry has regained control and basically says, like, actually, yeah, I am that much of a awesome dude. And Dr. Worth is saved. So it was a situation where Sentry basically says, I can overpower anything that you're thinking, regardless of who you think is in true control. So the psychiatrist at this point, aside from saying, thank you so much for saving me, the psychiatrist also realized, did you just manipulate yourself after you manipulated yourself? That's really deep.
When we're talking about the Sentry, because all of the inner personalities are so conflicted and yet present at the same time, it's difficult to describe what goes on without really getting into some difficult things to try and vocally explain without the benefit of reading the comics and seeing the artwork and following along with the story. So Void ends up battling Sentry up in the sky, and then Dr. Worth sees Bob and he says, well, neither Sentry nor Void is the true persona. So now you've got Bob as one physical entity, and the Sentry is another physical entity, and the Void as a third physical entity, but they're all part of Bob. Again, it's unusual, but it makes more sense if you're reading the artwork. So I do encourage, if you have Marvel Unlimited or if you have access to a comic book shop, go out and check out some of these issues because they're really well done. I definitely enjoyed reading them, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to summarize or to explain in a quick little 2 to 3 sentence thing. You kind of have to lay it out there and hope that the audience can follow along. Then here's where things get a little even more wonky. So Sentry meets up with Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is trying to help him. And again, I'm blowing through this as quickly as I can while still trying to make some sense of it. Doctor Strange does a magic mind probe, but he discovers a secret that the Sentry knows, and he says, you know what, I can't go any further, and I don't think you should either. So Sentry finds out he's actually being held at a secret shield base, and Strange is implanting false memories to keep him sedated. The only person who knows the real secret of Sentry's origin is the Professor. I forget the professor's name.
I don't remember either.
But he's the one who created the serum that the Sentry took. So the professor tells the Sentry the secret of his origins, except he wasn't supposed to do that because now Nick Fury, the white Nick Fury, the original Nick Fury, sets off a bomb that was implanted inside the professor to kill him because he told the Sentry, if you find out what your true origins are, I'm going to kill the professor. The professor tells him anyway, so he says, well, now I have to blow up the professor. The Sentry finds the Void in Antarctica, and then he battles him and he throws him into the sun, and the Void is like, I shall return, because that's what all villains say. And this is comic book, so villains are never really dead. So then we move into the Civil War storyline, and the Sentry sides with Iron Man because he realizes how dangerous he is if he's unchecked. So he's like, I'm just going to register, and this way I'm insured, I'm licensed, I'm whatever it is that you need, and we don't have to worry about anything if something goes wrong with me.
And I think that was another iconic panel because when you watch him do it, he does it, don't get me wrong, he's not wearing a hat, but hat in hand, meaning, hey, I know what could go wrong here. Just sign me up. I'll comply 100%. You guys are, you run the show. Because he knew he did not want to be in that situation where he had to make split-second decisions based on, how the fight was going.
Yeah, it's a very humble, dejected Sentry, and he's just surrendering to the knowledge that he's not in control. So later on, then Ultron kills his wife, Lindy, who has been deemed to be dead or not dead, depending on whether or not Sentry is Bob or what version of reality Sentry is dealing with at this point. So Sentry battles Ultron and it nearly destroys him by himself, which again goes to show you just how powerful the Sentry is. So he comes back to the Watchtower, which is his base, to find that Lindy is alive. Surprise. Once again, Lindy's not dead. Sentry had thought he killed her, but she was alive. He thought Ultron killed her, but she's alive. But here's the thing. When Sentry leaves, she turns to Tony Stark and says, I need you to either depower Bob or I need you to kill him. Because that's the only two ways that things are going to be resolved here. And that's a situation where I think a lot of credit should go to Lindy because she understands just how dangerous Bob is.
Well, okay, I can understand that point, but also let's kind of backtrack a little bit with this. You already had a bunch of powerful people, Doctor Strange, Nick Fury. You have the guy, surviving a gigantic explosion because of the professor, and he actually had to get him out of the area so everybody didn't die. And in that scenario, they admitted it doesn't look like this person can be killed. So for Lindy to say that, it's all well and good. Depowering, yes. But to say kill him, we've seen how that goes. If he thinks someone close to him died and he went that wild, I can't imagine the direct threat of saying, hey, be it hero or villain, we are going to try and kill you. I'm not sure I want to be anywhere near that battle, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. So in World War Hulk, where the Hulk was sent away and comes back to Earth and is very, very angry.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I know it's a little bit of a digression, but I have to say, World War Hulk, one of my favorite arcs of all time. Why? Because honestly, not that far off from just how people are handling the Sentry. Hulk, big time menace. Let's get him out of there. He goes somewhere else. He develops as a character immensely away from the Earth. He has a family. He has so many things that are going for... Oh, never mind. They're gone. Whoops.
See, that's Planet Hulk. You're talking about Planet Hulk.
I know.
Which leads into World War Hulk,
right.
Which I thought, just for my own my own taste. I thought Planet Hulk was done much better than World War Hulk. But in any case, we do plan on doing Bruce at a future episode. So
no, to explain, the reason why I bring that up is though I think the setup for World War Hulk is what made World War Hulk so valuable. It basically means, okay, you just took an incredibly powerful being and made him the most pissed off thing in the universe. That's where I think things were set up well.
So Sentry has this massive knockdown drag out battle with the Hulk, and they're leveling everything. And then the Hulk realizes that he has to defeat the Sentry in order to prevent the Sentry's energy from destroying everything, because the Sentry is even more powerful than the Hulk, but Bob has to be in control, because if he loses control, then everybody dies. So the Hulk ends up beating 7 shades out of Bob, who reverts back to his human form, and he's just like, thank you. And he collapses as Bob, not the Sentry, not the Void, Bob, because he's so exhausted. And Bob understands, again, how dangerous he is as a character. So then we move into the Dark Reign storyline. And here, the Sentry joins the Dark Avengers because he's under the control of Norman Osborn. And he does some really, really bad things. Because once again, when you have a character like the Sentry who's incredibly powerful, and then you manipulate him to serve evil ends, it doesn't work well for a lot of people. So from Dark Reign, we move into Siege. And this is where the Sentry destroys Asgard, because it's a threat to Norman Osborn.
I don't know if we can really convey the magnitude of the things this character is able to do. Oh my.
Just think about everything that Superman does, all the really cool, powerful stuff, and then just imagine he's doing it dressed in yellow with a blue S on his chest, except he's not really all there. So that's basically how I can boil it down so you can try to understand it. So the Void kills Ares.
Once again. Rips him in half.
And then he battles all of the Avengers, and he whoops everybody. He beats everybody's ass. Except Loki revives them and then uses some of that power to revert the Sentry into Bob. And at this point, Bob goes, please kill me. I'm a human now. Please kill me. So Thor kills him. Thor straight up kills Bob. And he cremates him, and he gives him like a little hero's thing, because he understands you were far gone and there was nothing else that I could do for you. So at some point he gets resurrected as a horseman of death. But for the most part, I don't think the Sentry's been in the comics for a while. He's been dead. But in a short span of time, in about a decade, a little more than that, he has been involved in some very, very interesting storylines. And there's a lot to work from. So now that we condensed the background and went through all of that, now we move into the issues. And Doc, where do we even begin with a character like Sentry?
Oh my. Okay, well, maybe we can start with the fact that he has all of this power. Let's just say you are Superman. Like anyone, listening to this, just randomly say you're Superman. Then let's change it up even further, because I'm going to assume we're all in this normative range. I don't like to always say normal, but just this normative range of emotions and behavior. Now let's take us to the far realm. And as you've already pointed out, now let's say that person is Superman. Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, he was dealing with addiction. That's why he took the serum. And he's been shown to be an alcoholic. He's been shown to be addicted to the serum that gives him his powers. And eventually reaches a point where he was needing to take more and more of the serum. And then it became a situation where he didn't need the serum anymore because the power was just within him, but he still wanted the serum.
I know we've mentioned in the past about tolerance within addiction, meaning you need more and more of the substance to produce a similar effect. Because of the way Sentry is written, it's literally, he developed the ultimate tolerance. It didn't matter. He just plain old consumed it to the point that, yeah, it's just there. That's, from the realistic standpoint, that's impossible to do. Because the more and more you take, the other physiological effects, depending on what type of substance it is, will kill you.
Imagine if you drink so much alcohol that your blood turns into liquor. That's essentially what happens to the Sentry. He takes the serum so much that it becomes part of him, and he has his power, but he still has the mind of an addict. And that is a very, very dangerous thing to be. And as you said, it's imagine taking someone out of the normative range and giving them godlike abilities. It's almost Bruce Almighty, but gone even more horribly wrong.
That's a great analogy. And I think that's a perfect reason why, and don't get me wrong, I don't know the writers personally or anything. That's why it's a perfect name to give to his alter ego, the Void. How do you fill that void? You've now just been given everything. There's nothing else to shoot for. I mean, literally, if you're an addict, there's nothing else to shoot for. He doesn't have the drive, per se, that an addict will go to any lengths to get whatever they want, but now he doesn't need anything. And in terms of the typical motivations for a human being, he doesn't have those anymore. He's got the power of 1,000,000 suns. I mean, it's kind of hard, to say, okay, well, then just work out or something to blow off energy. I don't think it's going to work that way.
No, there's no exercise, because exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins makes you happy. Happy people don't shoot their husbands. Yeah, that's right. I just went Legally Blonde.
Wow.
That's a great movie. That is a great scene.
All right.
And they're coming out with a third one, which I cannot wait for. So moving on, I don't want to get too much into this because we've discussed prior heroes with multiple personalities, but here it's a slightly different situation because here they can physically manifest, it seems, outside of his body. So this is something we've not seen. Whereas with previous heroes that we've seen, like Moon Knight or Legion, where the personalities are within their mind, but they're still physically within the same body, it seems that the Sentry and the Void are able to physically manifest outside the body of Bob Reynolds, even though they are all still technically part of him. So conceptually, this is a difficult thing to wrap your head around, but I think it's what makes Bob, again, one of the things that makes him an interesting character and also insane, is because he has these personalities that can create themselves outside of his body. So, Doc, what impact does that have on a psyche?
Well, we've seen it happen two ways. The first was he wasn't aware of it, in which case he basically thinks, okay, I'm doing all of these positive things and I have my arch nemesis. I mean, that's been classic to storytelling. Forget comics. There's nothing new about that. But then it's, the big reveal that it's the same person. Okay, what a shock. I mean, that's incredible. But the point being, okay, I'm fighting myself. What do I do about that? Because I know we've talked about this in other terms, but how do you win against yourself? I mean, we all are fighting our own battles, but I've never fought myself outside of myself. I'll admit that's a little beyond me. And I think that's why they came to the conclusion they did to solve that problem. If I am causing a lot of harm and a lot of good, they're not canceling each other out. It's just eventually the harm is going to just overtake everything. It's the law of diminishing returns. You're just going to end up saving a few people here and there while other people are getting killed and you can't do anything about it. So the idea of just going away, so be it. That's what they came up with when he didn't know who it was. Once he gets to the knowledge that there's something else going on outside of himself, but it's still a part of him, that's where I thought they handled it well with Emma Frost and with the rest of the rebuilt Avengers. The idea that, well, wait a minute, there's something good here as long as you can neutralize that negative, find a way to do that, it's not going to come out anymore. Don't worry about that. Just be who you are that tries to do good, and ultimately those results will start to outweigh the negative. That's another perspective. The way I'm trying to describe this is not that one way is right compared to the other. It's just that the way I like to say it, if you have a choice between doing something and doing nothing, do something. And Bob has a lot of trouble with that for half of his, storylines. And the other half, it's, well, I am starting to get control of it. And then it kind of shifts into an even bigger problem, which, I guess we can transition to. And it's the overall idea that even for a split second, he can't lose control. He just has to constantly be on watch, a sentry, if you will, just to make sure that nothing bad happens by his own hand.
Yeah, it's the world of cardboard speech from the Justice League Unlimited, with Superman, again, being the Superman XP that he is. I constantly imagine I'm living in a world of cardboard. I have to take careful every single time, or I can never lose control even for a split second, or people will die or seriously get hurt. And that's why I think the Void works, because the Void in this situation is his version of, was it Brainiac? Or
this one was Darkseid.
Darkseid. That's right. It was Darkseid. You can take it, can't you? You give me a rare opportunity to cut loose and show you just how powerful I really am. Well, The Void is that for the Sentry. Everywhere else, he has to be on control and always within control. And for someone like Bob, who's not really in control as it is, now you give him all these powers, but he has to keep them in check. That pushes someone to the brink. That would push anyone to the brink.
That's right. I don't want to make it sound like it was just this Bob character where that could happen. And I'm not trying to invoke politics here. I'm just saying in general, the more power that you get, the greater... See, I'm about to use another trope. I'm about to say the Peter Parker line, great power comes great responsibility. But I mean...
You can go for it, man. It works.
Yeah. It really is the situation of with great power comes great responsibility. But I think what that means in the greater picture is the greater control you have to your emotional reactions. It's not just that you have to be careful with what you say or how you conduct yourself. It's if someone insults you, don't just immediately insult them back, because the repercussions are incredibly massive. When Sentry gets a little ticked off, people get ripped in half. That's not great. We get worlds torn apart. It's a situation where any emotion that he shows has to be tempered. And it's easy for me to say, but that's true for so many people in our lives. I mean, we all have situations where on a professional basis, there are things we might want to say to someone and we know we can't do it.
You have to have that filter.
Yeah. And some people it's true. Some people naturally have different filters for different things. You just have to know when, if you want that opportunity to cut loose, then either find a way to develop it somewhere else, or to be blunt, don't go into a position where you're going to have that filter checked every time. Don't tax yourself, because everyone wears down over time if you're put in the exact same position and you feel like, oh my goodness, I want to act out, but I can't.
Yeah, it's very, very trying from a mental standpoint. And as we said, when you're already not in the best of mental conditions, it makes it worse. Now, here's an interesting thing, because it's not something that we see a lot in comics. He's been forgotten numerous times. And at the very least, at least twice, he's been forgotten and wiped away from not just his own memory, but from the memory of everyone. That is an incredibly difficult thing to cope with. And it's certainly not anything that we could conceive of happening in the real world. But you have to imagine that you interact with people on a regular basis and you develop relationships with them. You develop a connection with them. They remember you. This is just, human sociology. To go from that to all of a sudden, no one remembers who you are or any of the good things that you've done but you have these fleeting memories of all the good that you did. That does not help anyone's mental psyche at all. And that is incredibly damaging. And that's something that we don't see all that often in comic books.
I think that we usually conceptualize this even beyond a person's lifespan when we talk about legacy. In other words, people want to leave their footprints, and the idea that they get swept away is very disturbing. Now, imagine that happening within your lifetime. That is the type of situation that would lead someone, in theory, to start doing more outlandish things because, and I don't even know where this is from, but it's, love me or hate me, you will remember me. That's a situation where you're going to potentially, I don't know, and it's not written this way in the comics, but I think it still fits very well. You get glimpses because there are just some things that are completely indelible. He remembers his old sidekick. I mean, it's hard to forget someone that had an amputated arm in a costume, but, I remember it was because he was just ordering a cheeseburger where the guy worked. But, it's like, okay, well, that and just the way he looked, and he had that glimpse, didn't stay long, but had that glimpse, like, okay, it's kind of hard to remember someone that you had those types of battles with where he lost it in the first place. We didn't mention it in the original rundown, but he actually used part of his own energy that stayed with Hulk. And Hulk had brief memories of this man, the Golden Man.
Golden Man, yep.
Because Hulk is incredibly base, to use the classic term reptilian brain, of just, the most basic memories. And the fact that there was some entity that was able to bring a calming influence to this rage, that left some small imprint, and he kept it when no one else did. And there is a statement about it. People may not remember what you actually did or what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yep.
I think they do a good job just pointing out, like, there's a reason why this plan can ever be perfect. It's because when you involve too many people, too many intense emotions, you're going to have something that shifts the way people have reacted. You're going to change other people's behaviors, even if they don't recall why those behaviors changed or why their emotions changed. So he doesn't get that reciprocated in any way during these periods of time where no one remembers him, which, if you're not getting any feedback, honestly, that leads to a path of death. And to bring it back to the Harlow experiment, oh my goodness, I actually brought it to something that was educational. Basically, if you want to look this up, it was an experiment with infant monkeys, and they needed to be nursed, but they weren't with actual monkeys. They were just with wire meshes that had milk attached. And one was covered with felt, kind of looked like a monkey, but very soft, and the monkey would cling to it. The other one literally just had a milk bottle and was a wire mesh. The monkeys that seemed to adapt better to dealing with other monkeys as they grew older were the ones that had the cloth monkey, the one that actually felt like it was real. And it was interesting because there's an iconic picture of those monkeys where the infant would hold on to the cloth monkey and lean over to suckle on the wire monkey because it wanted that connection. Basically, hey, I can feel something here, even if what I need to survive is here. So put yourself in Bob's shoes. You are a random schlub. A good wife. I'm not trying to knock his family or his dog. I mean, it's nice. I'm not trying to insult that, but just nothing else really going on. And then once in a while, you remember, oh my goodness, I did so much more. In theory, that's a positive because it'll motivate you to say, okay, well, how do I get that back? But at the same time, it's like, well, wait a minute. If nobody remembers it anyway, what's the point? It can actually have the negative effect. And for the most part with the Sentry, we do see some great parts of support from the Avengers where they say, like, no, go for it, man. But then we also see the other sides where basically it's like, all right, you know what? Never mind. I don't think I got this.
Yeah, and that leads into what I think is one of his last issues. And this is something that, again, we don't see all that often in comic book characters. He's suicidal in many respects. He understands that he doesn't want these powers and that he doesn't deserve them, and he wants to die, but he can't. And so the notion of the suicidal hero is something that we have seen, but it's not particularly common. We know that the Hulk is definitely one. Bruce Banner has tried to commit suicide on a couple of occasions. It was referenced in the Avengers film. I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out. There are those heroes that have that death wish, dare I say, because they believe, good or bad, that it's the only way for them to resolve these problems, and that their death would provide a net benefit to society, even with all the good that they've done, because they are suffering and they cannot bear the weight of it. And as someone who, was formerly suicidally depressed, I understand that notion, that darkness, and there is something comforting or beckoning about it. And I've long since come out of that, and I understand my triggers, and I understand how not to go back to that place. And that if I feel myself starting to slide back, that I can reach out to my loved ones, my wife, my parents, my sibling, my family and friends, and talk to them about it and come out of that place. Bob doesn't have that support system. He has the wife, but it's not the happiest of marriages. He struggles with addiction. He is not very together and secure in himself, and that doesn't help his suicidal tendencies. So what impact does that have on someone who, as we've said, is already coping with all of these things and now he wants to end it all?
Well, you identified all the risk factors, and it's very telling that in one of his greatest moments of vulnerability, Thor goes that far. I think that's almost something that can be a very relevant modern statement, because there are considerations for euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide, which, controversy or not, I'm going to take the stance along with the American Psychiatric Association that I don't support that, but I'm not trying to get into a debate about this. The idea that you're taking a situation that we don't know how long it's going to last and putting that type of permanent solution to it, I think creates more harm than good, because we already mentioned, if you're saying that the concern is that people won't remember you, that you're not taking anyone's pain away. You're just transferring it to the ones that survive. And I have yet to see someone say, well, you know, it's a good thing that they went when they did. I mean, people talk about that in terms of transitions from cancer, things like that. I appreciate that, that people have to come to terms with the idea that things are finite and that things are not going well. And that, honestly, when it comes to certain types of depression, if you ask them, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Many people will say, what tunnel? It's that dark. And I can't pretend to say that I know immediately what that feels like. But the one thing I can always say is you can always reach out. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger. It doesn't matter if it's a friend. It doesn't matter if it's a professional. You can always reach out. Every inch of the globe at this point has a way of contacting someone. I don't mean to be flippant when I say in the intro that you're not alone and help is out there. I don't care if it were my next door neighbor that I didn't get along with. I don't care if it's someone on the sidewalk. I don't care if it's a police officer. It's just a matter of just doing everything you can just to take that one step. But then it also goes back the other way too. It's not a one-way street. Too many times, and I know we briefly touched on this last week, but too many times we assume the status quo. And with a character like Bob, who's going about his day-to-day business, who is going through the motions of his job or his relationship with his wife or feeding his dog, on the surface, it may seem like everything is okay, but sometimes you got to give that person extra permission to say when it's not okay. In a situation like this, Bob has so many other factors going on. It's not fair for me to just automatically say one is more important than the other. Wherever Bob wanted to begin, it would be up to him, but I think they do a good job to at least point out, even when people quote unquote don't remember him, he was on a scaffold. He didn't say how he got there, but Mr. Fantastic, his previous, before the memory loss, best friend, he just happened to be there and said, what are you doing here? And he was trying to convince him about the void and the Sentry and all that. And thankfully, Reed Richards actually had a video, but that's not really what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, in that moment, if you actually put that in our world, that is an event that can happen. And no, it's not going to be someone that can just stand on the ground and stretch themselves. But Reed Richards didn't know who that man was. It was a construction site. And all he said, because he said, what are you doing here? That opened it up. Who knows what would have happened otherwise? And I'm not saying he was suicidal in that moment, but that's the point. It's internal. You don't know. So as long as we stop making assumptions that we know what's going on with each other, we can make progress. I apologize for the preachy nature of this. The part that really resonates with me when it comes to someone like the Sentry is the idea that sometimes things don't go the way that you had planned and you feel like automatically they're your fault and you take the blame so that other people don't have to. And sometimes you take it to an irrational point where you think you're not a good person. I don't know if it's ever officially manifested in me as depression, but I can tell you that that thought is something that I have on a regular basis. And I'm glad that I have the people around me to remind me that I'm not as bad a person as I think I am sometimes. Sorry.
No, thank you. That was...
I didn't know I was going to go there, but I did.
That's okay. That is absolutely okay. And with your permission, I would like to keep this in.
Yes.
I don't even want to cut this.
Oh,
because,
no. I didn't say cut it. No.
Because I think this just goes to prove, some of the stuff that we talk about here. This is why we do this show. This is why we have this show, exactly for moments like this. Because if not you, then someone else is having this, listening to this. And that's something that we've seen. I see it on the internet all the time. Everyone is going through a struggle that you know nothing about. So that is why we try to advocate being as good a person as possible to everyone, because we're all due a level of basic human decency, and we are worthy of that from the get-go. And we all have the potential to have a positive impact on the lives of those around us. And I can say with absolute certainty and no hesitation that you have a positive impact on my life every day, and have for the last 20 plus years. And I'm not even ashamed to say that, and to tell the podcast and the listeners, I love you. You are a family member to me as far as I'm concerned. So I know you go through darkness, as do I. And it's times like that when we have each other and we have our families to remind us that we put so much good out into the world. And that's what I think both of us want to make sure resonates with our listeners. You put so much good out into the world. You have the potential for so much positivity. Don't ever lose sight of that. Take that. And in your darkest moments, remember, you always have a choice to be a good person, to be a better person, to try and have a positive impact. Even if it's something as small as just saying hello to another person on the street, to just acknowledge their existence, to reach out and have that connection with someone. That is what keeps us all going.
I'm going to give, this is just a random tip to people, and it's something that I actually practice. If you are on social media, for example, I'll just give Facebook as the number one thing. People's birthdays come up. The one thing that I always do, it doesn't matter if it's like one of those really loose connections, like someone I haven't seen in years or whatever, or an acquaintance that I met only twice. That's irrelevant. When their birthday comes up, I type happy birthday. I make sure I send it out to every single person. And the reason I do that is because I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what their situation is, but I want to let them know that there's at least one person that would take the few seconds to acknowledge that their birth is something that I'm grateful for.
That is beautiful. I am one of the people who hides my birthdays on Facebook because I don't want people to make a big deal out of it. But so if you know me and you know personally what my birthday is, you can feel free to message me or text me or what have you. But I keep my birthday hidden because I don't make a big thing out of it. But I do that exact same thing for everybody else, whether it's a cousin, whether it's someone I went to high school with, college, law school, someone that I met years ago, even if it's someone that I vehemently disagree with on 98% of issues. And I wonder sometimes why I'm even still friends with this person. If it's their birthday, I will take the time and I will type out happy birthday, because I feel that same way. I want to make sure that they know that they are appreciated, that they have some value, and that they are worthy of respect and dignity and feeling that connection with other people. So we got really, really deep there, and it happens. It happens. And like I said, I'm not going to cut any of this because I think it's too beautiful and too powerful and important to cut out. So to our $3 and up patrons, you'll find something else on the blooper reel for this month, because this ain't making it. I burped earlier in the episode. That'll probably make it into the blooper reel. But this exchange, this stays in because this is real. This happens. But now we have to transition into the treatment portion of the show. So starting with in-universe, and this is a very interesting character because we've seen in the comics numerous characters have treated him in a psychiatric fashion. And I've said this before, like with Legion, I think. Doc, what do you do differently?
I'm going to take the approach of ranking the techniques that the characters have used in universe. Top of the list, Emma Frost. Why? Because, and I know she has the advantage because of the whole psychic powers thing, but the point is she met Bob where he was. She found out, okay, what are the thoughts that you're having right now? And it's literally a display panel of his thoughts and memories and everything else. And she's just trying to, with his assistance, you know, so he's actively involved. Okay, what are the things that are important to you? Like, what's relevant, what's not, and how do we get control of it? Bob shuts down, like literally disappears because he closes off. She recognizes it. The void shows up outside of that, so she's aware, okay, we got a big situation here. She brings in his wife. In other words, okay, who else do we need to recreate this connection in a positive way? And they're able to make progress. And ultimately, she's able to bring forth a community around him that's going to offer that support. So she's got her A game going. Doctor Strange, who I think is a great character, by the way. Man, oh man, I don't know what to say to that. The idea of, okay, whatever it is that's going on in that particular section, don't go there. And I know I've talked about that when people do that, when people, actively suppress negative thoughts or things, and it's having bad consequences itself. I don't think that's very productive. And of course, they go so far as to like just actively sedate him, and all of those things are just disastrous. I don't know exactly how that was supposed to be a long-term fix, and it just really ticked him off. So I would put that at the bottom. So sorry, Dr. Strange, you're a doctor and everything. I know you're not a psychiatrist, you were a surgeon, but you didn't cut mustard there. In the middle is what had gone on for, I guess, timeline-wise for decades with the whole who remembers the Sentry thing. That was an agreement between all of the major heroes, Reed Richards leading the way. A part of what they had done wasn't just, and this is why I don't put it at the top, because I can understand why they did what they did, because it was a collaborative agreement. I'll give that credit. But a part of what they did also, I don't think we mentioned it, Reed Richards actually gave this negative diatribe about the Sentry at his funeral, about how horrible he was. Like, he was crooked, corrupt. He had done such bad things. And the idea was, well, if you disparage him, then people won't have a motivation to remember him in any capacity. So I can understand, sort of, but I would never, as a therapist, think that it would be a great idea to just rag on someone. That to me is a terrible way to go. So I was going to give him a neutral, but I'm going to say that was pretty bad. So in other words, I think Emma Frost set the bar. I would try and emulate that. And the others, I would really just, really avoid those techniques.
So moving to an out of universe, taking the powers out of this, we've discussed, again, with the multiple personalities and such. What else would you do differently without trying to rehash too much of those scenarios?
Right. In terms of, we had mentioned the fear of losing control. In all honesty, the best parallel I can make to that is panic disorder. And oh my goodness, I just realized, and we're not going to go back for this, but they even mention at some points that Bob is agoraphobic. He doesn't want to be outside.
Yes.
Which goes with panic disorder. This works out perfectly because panic can manifest in many ways. Most people think of the incredible anxious feeling, shortness of breath, heart palpitations, the feeling that you're going to die, stuff like that. But one of the other factors for many people is feeling like you're going to lose control. You're going to go crazy. Like you just don't know what's going to happen. So I think that plays in well here. And that means that it's definitely treatable, because the first thing the person has to recognize, and we're talking out of universe here, no powers, okay, I get it, is to help the person come back to that rational thought. Like, okay, well, but what does that mean? What would happen? For example, in the midst of a panic attack, you have those physical symptoms and you have that mindset of what's going to happen, but especially if you have someone next to you, they may say, like, are you okay? And they may not know what's going on. They may call 911 because they don't know, like, if it's a medical emergency or not. But it's like, okay, but then what actually happens? Because for most people, they've had at least one panic attack before. Well, did you actually die? Or did you lose control and run amok in the city or what? No, you didn't. And you don't even have to tell the person that. It's just, kind of reminding them in the moment, like, okay, how's this going? And I'll admit, this one is a little more harsh in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy. That's because the person that trained me, was predominantly in the Albert Ellis school of rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is much more like, okay, you know what? Ride the wave. Let it happen. Whatever happens, happens, because we know that the ultimate result is still going to be okay. There are other forms of cognitive behavioral therapy that focus more on like dissolving the attack as it happens, basically saying, okay, visualize positive spaces, do other things in the moment. Remember, okay, you say that if your breathing is too fast, then okay, consciously take the longest breath you can, hold it 4 seconds, take the longest breath out as you can, hold it 4 seconds, and you start to abate it that way. So those parts, I think that's definitely, a simple way to treat that. The other parts, okay, multiple personality. I don't know about the audience. I know for me, we've done it. Okay, I'm not going to rehash that. Suicide, I think I went on enough of a diatribe about that, and whatever help you can get, go ahead and get it. If we're talking about someone that's just losing control, like truly losing control, out of touch with reality, gone to limits that they're truly a danger, then yes, we have to look back to medication, different categories. I'm not going to get into the details of that. But once again, I figured I'd just try and do a different spin because we've definitely had episodes where we've covered a lot of these other topics. But that was the one part that I thought was really unique to this character. Something that we haven't often seen. And I like the fact that they were able to say, let's make a character like Superman, but then make him crazy. For I don't like to use it. I know we don't like to use that pejorative term on this show, but let's make him different. That was his own quote, though, because when his fortress or whatever, when it comes back at one point, when people, when he remembers and people remember him, it comes back out of nowhere. I think it was like right in the middle of, it was right over Stark Tower. Right. And he says like, oh, wow, I guess I was hiding amongst my own crazy. Yeah, that is true. So now we have the fun and unenviable job of getting the Sentry on the couch. So, Doc, vaya con Dios. Can I do Superman instead? I could just tell him to keep doing well. No, sorry. No. Doesn't work that way. So here we go. The Sentry on Dr. Issues' couch. Hello, I'm Dr. Issues. Who am I speaking with? Bob, for now. So, Bob, how's everything going? You know how well it's going. That's why you're here, isn't it? If it were fine, there'd be no need for us to talk. If it were fine, the Sentry would be dead, and you could handle a patient who's worthy of your time. And what makes you think you're not worthy of my time right now? If you have to ask that question, then you're just not ready to deal with whatever it is that I am. I don't know if you realize this, but even if you don't have hope, then others, including me, have hope for you. A fat lot of good that's done, everyone. All I do is hurt people. I tell you to remember all the times I've screwed up, but I've screwed up so badly, the only way to fix it is to make everyone forget me. So I can't even do that right. Well, then I'm going to look at this as an opportunity for a clean slate. But one rule I have, okay, is that for every negative that you tell me, you have to tell me at least 2 positives. Look, I know you can do that. Then this is going to be a short session because I'm going to run out of positives real quick. We'll see. The Void will never die. As a result, if I lose control, even for a moment, millions of people, if not billions, will die. And Bob Reynolds cannot have that on his head. Nor should you. Well, how do we handle this? I didn't ask for this. I didn't know what that serum was going to do. I was a junkie. I was strung out. I was looking for a high. Bob Reynolds is the best anti-drug message walking the planet. Don't do drugs, or you could end up an insane superhero with powers you don't want or can't control. Okay, well, you mentioned the serum. So when was the last time you used that serum? It's been years, but at this point, it's in me. I can't get it out, and there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, I'm going to keep that positive spin. That means that there's one less thing to worry about.
Well, gee whiz, Doc. Thanks for that.
Look, there's nothing wrong with starting small with your victories, okay? And working to the larger ones. At this point, it doesn't matter how I say it, okay? You've been able to talk to me this whole time without losing control. You know, you've already brought up so many possible problems, but, you know, that tells me you have more control than you think.
Who says I'm in control? You still think you're talking to Bob.
And here we go. I take it you're the Void.
Nice to meet you. That's my name.
Just humor me, okay? When did this conversation flip?
Then you walked in the door.
Wait. So you're the one who contains all the self-loathing and the original addiction?
Well, that's all Bob. I just knew what would draw you in.
Wait. So if you were lying to me from the start, how do I know that you're not lying about that?
How do you know I say anything is the truth? Or a lie? That's the beauty of me. You don't know what's real.
Well, I did my homework. I do know that you have a tendency to look at people's fears and worst nightmares, so what have you seen with me?
Oh, so many delicious thoughts. There's about your wife. There's about your daughter. There's about your friends and family. This will sustain me for quite some time.
Stay strong. Look, I know you've already dealt with a psychiatrist even, so I'm confident the Sentry is going to stop you.
I hope that offers you consolation in your last moments.
Well, I know that you can't overpower the Sentry for that long. I mean, he's always there to stop you, you know, right? Right?
Yeah, Doc. Where is the Sentry? Bob, is there something you want to share with us?
Doc, there's still a lot to be done here.
Hey, Bob, you know we need the Sentry to stop the Void here, right? Come on, this isn't the time for long psychoanalysis.
Where is he?
I can't hold them back any. Stand back, citizens. The Sentry is here. Not again. Are you back? What is happening? Which version of reality? Who are we even talking about?
You know, I always wanted to do an episode where we talked about Superman, but I don't know. It just seems like it would be too boring because he just has to keep doing what he always does.
But what if there was a character that was like Superman, but not all there?
I like it, but you would have thought they created a character like that a long time ago.
Yeah, you would think. They would have put him in the comics, and then we could have talked about him and all his various issues. Wait a minute. Oh, well.
Yep.
So, further proof that we really don't script everything on this show. We have a base outline and then we just go from there.
Yep.
And I think it leads to some very interesting and entertaining and very real moments.
Yep.
So, and I know we alluded to it earlier. And obviously, we always mention in the intro to the show, you know, please call whatever emergency numbers are in your locality. If you're in the U.S., the National Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. If you or a loved one or anyone that you know is feeling in a low point, please call that number. There are people who are willing and able and ready to help you at a moment's notice, or you can contact whatever other numbers are in your locality. If you're listening to this outside the United States, you know, please do a web search and find those numbers because we don't want to lose you. And I'm not just saying that as a podcast host to a listener. I'm saying that as a human being to another human being. You are worthy. You are needed. You are vital. You have connections. You have value. So please don't take that permanent solution to a temporary problem. Please. We're asking you, we're begging, pleading with whatever strength of conviction that we have. Please don't go. Don't make a permanent mistake like that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for just reminding everyone just how seriously I know I take this. And at this point, I think everyone does, because there's no such thing as being immune to it. It can affect anyone at any time.
And we all go through it. We all ride waves, and that's understandable, and that's human. And that's what makes you just like everyone else. And that's what brings us together, is those joys and those lows. And we've all gone through them, and we will continue to get through them together. And if you can't do it alone, there are those of us who are willing to help you. And that's one of the things that we like to, talk about on this show is we use the superheroes as a way to destigmatize the discussions about mental health. It's okay to fall. It's okay to have problems. It's not okay to give up. So please, if you're going through stuff, if you're struggling, please contact someone. On that note, we've reached the end of the show, and next week we're going to be talking about Hank Pym, a man who's gone through his own struggles numerous times over the several decades in the comics. So we're going to do Hank Pym to tie in with the Ant-Man and the Wasp film, which I'm very much looking forward to. Early reviews are out. They say it's pretty solid. So can't wait to see that next week. The week after that, we're going to do Casey Jones from the Ninja Turtles. So our first non-Marvel DC type character. Well, no, technically Question, I guess, was the one. Well, yeah, well, he started off.
But he ended up DC.
But he ended up DC. And Watchmen was DC, Vertigo, whatever, but it's technically now it's within there. So Casey Jones is the first one that's really fully outside of the Marvel DC dichotomy. So that one's going to be an interesting one. And then the week after that, we're going to go back to DC with Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane. So that should be a very interesting episode as well.
Yeah, I'm really scared of what we're going to come up with that one.
Boom. So you can find us on the internet in a number of different ways. Our website, capesonthecouch.live. You can find the show iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/capesonthecouch. Our Twitter is capesonthecouch. Email address is capesonthecouch@gmail.com. And Doc, anything else you want to say before we close?
Just wanted to say that I appreciate everyone listening, and we're all humans, and you definitely saw a side of me or heard a side of me that I don't always let out, but I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did as well. And to be said to Doc Issues, I love you, and to our listeners, thank you, and we appreciate you, and we hope to see you next time. So for Dr. Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.